back to Mr. Obsolete's Vintage Homesteading. Today on the homestead we're going to be doing kindling. It's fire season coming up. We heat with wood, so we're going to talk about the saw that I use the most, different things we use in conjunction with it, why we use this. We'll talk a little bit about the history of this saw too. So anyway, the reason that I use this more than any other, it's the lightest top handle saw that I have, and it's also very powerful. It's also real finicky, like most little saws. So anyway, the saw that started all the mini saws was actually a McCulloch. It was Power Mac 6 in 1968. It became a huge success, and so other manufacturers decided to start making small saws too. And the Mini Mac is the second series. And what they did is the Power Mac 6 was expensive to make, and so one of the engineers was given the task of making it cheaper, and the Mini Mac series are the result. So anyway, get my notes here. The Mini Mac 6 was the first one, and that came out I think in 1970. It's 29cc. And the only thing they ever really did to upgrade these is eventually they put a chain brake on them. So anyway, it went from the Mini Mac 6, then it went to the Mini Mac 25, and then the 30 and the 35, and then the later saws, the Mac 130 and Mac 140. They're all the same basic power head. The displacement changes a little bit, like this one was 34cc, 34.4cc, 2 cubic inch. And you know, marketing always played a lot to do, especially in later years in McCulloch, because they quit innovating, and so they come up with fancy names like right here, Eager Beaver, and Mac Cat, and had a nice graphics on them, trying to make you think you're getting something new, but just getting an old saw with a new sticker on it. This isn't the original recoil starter I've talked about before. That, like I say, these little saws are real finicky. And weather, air density, and fuel in the tank all contribute to the different running conditions. So anytime you use one, don't leave the garage without a screwdriver to adjust the carb, because you're going to have to change it. But anyway, the original owner just had a little suburbia home and used it for trimming and whatnot, and he couldn't make it run consistently, and so he put in a garage sale, and I bought it for $10. And I was curious when I walked over and looked at it. It had the case and everything, which I've showed in other videos. And I walked off because I figured for $10 it must be a piece of junk. He said, "Hey, that saw runs. You ought to buy that." So he fired it up for me, and sure enough, it's running. I don't know how many years ago. That's been years and years ago, but it's been totally dependable. As long as you figure out the little nuances and how to keep them running, which a lot of people didn't, and so that's why there's still a lot of them around. But the Eager Beaver was off a part saw that I had here, the recoil starter, because he abused the other one so bad it finally failed. So anyway, what we're going to do today is we're going to talk about the process that we use. So the kindling, the different sizes of it, use the smaller stuff for the easy kindling. The bigger stuff we'll split it, and we'll show you that on our splitter. And then you've got the mini sawhorse here. So just set it on here like this, and the other side here is right over the wheelbarrow, so I can just cut it and it'll drop right in there. And then the other thing I'll demonstrate is throttle control. That's really important. It just takes time to learn the skill, but like if I'm cutting this, when I see this part of it, if I were cutting right here and it's starting to drop, I let off the throttle and there's enough momentum that it'll cut it off, and then when it drops off, the chain speed is virtually none or stopped, and so that chances if it dropped it or something like that, you're not going to get injured. Next thing I use is this table here. There was a junk store one time, and there was 3 of these there for $10, and so I bought them. And this one I put a 2x2 surround on it with an open on the one end, and that way as soon as I'm through cutting, to put the next piece of wood on, I can just set the saw in here and put it at a little bit of an angle so the saw will kind of slide back here. And that really speeds up the process. So let's see here. Yep. Yeah, we'll get the saw warmed up and get our eyes and ears on and start cutting and demonstrating. Okay, I'll start the saw up and I'll demonstrate throttle control here, and it takes a couple of cuts to get it dialed in, so let's see what happens. There you can see how nice that works. Yeah, been fiddling around with all these little saws lately, and I've got those home lights Mr. C gave us and Randy gave us at Home Light 240, which we had in the last video. But I've got a Home Light 200 that Mr. C gave us. It's got a short bar like this and a top handle too. I haven't got it running yet, but when I do, I'll do a comparison between these two saws. But the other thing that I just briefly talk about, a lot of people ask me what kind of ratio of oil I use on my saws. I use a lot of different variations depending on the temperature and the saw I'm using. Now the Mini Mac here, you know, if you're using McCulloch oil originally, it said 40:1. But these work pretty hard, they're ported pretty hot, and so if you run them at 40:1, they wear out a lot quicker. And so I run this one in normal temperatures, 32:1. Hotter temperature I run 24:1. And the type of oil, the Bardol VBA, which I'm still using here, it's a little smoky, but I've never had to decarbon any saw that I've ever used it in, and I've never had one fail on me either. So I'm down to my last of it. So the thing that, you know, people say, oh well, maybe I should use this 100:1 super oil. That's a mistake. There's a YouTuber, Richard Flagg, is a professional saw mechanic. He's been doing a lot of tests on, you know, the full synthetic oils and more modern saws, and you know, running them at 50:1, and it's not enough. The bearings are going bad in them, and the film strength's good. The pistons seem to do okay, but even at 50:1 with a full synthetic, they build a lot of ash and carbon on the top of the piston, so I won't use it. I've always used partial synthetic, and I'm slowly moving into Echo Red Armor, which I've talked about quite a bit in the videos. But anyway, for our next part, we're going to come over and use our kindling splitter and show you how that works and talk about it. Be right back. Well, here's our kindling splitter. If you want to know all the good BS on it, you can go back and watch some of our real old videos, but I suggest going back and watch our old videos anyway, because we cover lots of stuff. But anyway, this metal here, this is some scrap that my friend had, and donated to us a long time ago, and I'd watched TV and all the different kindling splitters and looked at the good and bad features of them and the outrageous price of them before the crummy Chinese stuff came in. And so I just figured this out. You know, bought this axe head for $2 at a junk store, and it's not very good quality, but it's fine for this. And I welded this cross piece here, and the reason I did it like it is, like this, and open instead of enclosed like most of them, is that you can use all kinds of different sizes of wood. Now if I'm going to do something like this, I can just put it right here. It holds it in place, so your hand is never anywhere near the face of the axe. And you just put a little set on it so it's on there. And that works pretty good. I had a bunch of knots in that one. And we got something bigger like this. It's got a big crack in it right here, so I'll put that right across where the face of the blade is. Just set it once, and just the bark holding it there, but you can see that's a pretty good sized piece of wood. And so if I want small stuff, I can just kind of if I want it smaller yet. But the idea behind this is you can use just about any type of piece of wood. So here's a good example. If I had one of the commercial ones, most likely this wouldn't fit into the opening at the top here because it's enclosed. This, I can turn it and just put it this way and take a slice off here, turn it sideways, come a slice here if I want a wide slice. And so any type of position I can get different types of wood. So we'll start with the edge back here, just to cut off a piece. There again, just set it once. Get a lot of surface area there, and it's nice dry wood, so that'll light up very easily. There, if you want it smaller, just like that. And if you want a wide piece, there again, this goes against here. Just to set it. There again, nice and dry like this, and you can build some real small wood under it. Build a little teepee, and this stuff will catch fire, nothing flat. Build a really hot fire really quickly. If you want smaller, like I say, your hand's never near this. I mean, this thing's so dull, you really be doing something dumb to hurt yourself on it. So anyway, like I say, this works much better than any commercial one I've ever seen. And the nice thing about it, with the metal was free, and I had some welding rod and $2 for this, and some bolts to hold it on the stump there, and some paint. I got like $5 in it. And my hammer, I picked that up at a junk sale. It's a little blacksmith hammer. Paid $4 for it, and it's just ideal for this. And you can really process this stuff really quickly. So anyway, that's kind of how we do the kindling. I'm going to talk just briefly about some other junk here. This is off a tree that we dropped recently, a couple of videos ago. This was up on towards the top of the tree where one of the branches had come out. And the tree was 35 years old, but this branch where the top had blown out of it, right here, these branches just came out to the side here, and the one below it. It's 10 years on this, so I find it really interesting on wood how that, you know, they survive all the things. And I talked before about the rings are real wide on one side and tight on the other because of the wind blowing against it, so that strengthens it. And then there again you can see where the tree was damaged. This was a burl right close to the top where it had a wound before, and then later on the top got snapped out of it. So anyway, we'll talk a little more. This is part of the tree when we took it down. I used the Stilo 20 on this, and it doesn't have a sight line on it, so I tried to get it as close as I could, guesstimating, and it's about 3/4 of an inch here and about 1.25 inches right here. But even so, the tree fell right where we wanted it. So that's one thing on the mids and smaller saws that most of them don't have as a sight line, and that's something they should have. But anyway, I'll come back with some more BS. So like I say, a little practice on throttle control and just makes it a lot safer. Thing isn't running fast. If it dropped down and kicked something out or whatever, it just quits cutting. So that works out great. Now, something else I'm going to do here. These are some rounds out of the tree we cut down a number of videos ago, and they're all the same area of the tree, so the rings are all the same size. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to talk about boiled linseed oil, a treatment for like wooden handles. And so I'm going to take these and mark them where that the rings are the same width. I'll just take regular boiled linseed oil and put a tablespoon of it on there, and then we'll put on some stuff like I usually use as heated. Okay, for the third thing we're going to use boiled linseed oil and turpentine mixed. A number of people said this. People use that way back and stuff to make it draw into the handles quicker. Loggers and stuff use that, I guess. But anyway, what we'll do is we'll put a tablespoon on each one of these three here, and then we'll watch and see how it draws in. So anyway, we'll be back with some more vintage BS here. Well, to wrap up our video for today, we're going to have vintage BS. Former video we had the Schwinn fake crate here, the repro one, and we talked about it when they were made and whatnot, but I wanted to show you a real one. This is the real McSchwinn deal here. This was the top of the line one. Had a 5-speed shifter on it, chrome chain guard, Springer front end. Front there you can see it's got a drum brake on it, and I've found somewhere said that those were made by the Sachs company. Well, Sachs is a company that makes automotive equipment like clutches and whatnot, shock absorbers, things like that, but at one time they also did motorcycles, and so I believe this hub is the same one that they used on the moped that they sold. And so Here's how you can trick your spouse into thinking why you need to collect junk. So we got a sax brake hub on this, and so what does that mean in the chainsaw world? I'll be right back. Well, here's a Sax Dolmar chainsaw. So if you're a Schwinn collector and you got crates with a drum brake made by Sax, that gives you an excuse to collect Sax Dolmar chainsaws. So anyway, I'll be right back. Okay, well, we got the Poolan wood shark here. This is a perfect example of marketing. You know, they have all the fancy colors and graphics and stuff like that, so they can sell you an inferior part, in this case this chainsaw. But I really didn't think it was possible to come up with anything dumber looking than this, but this is the cheesiest looking piece of you-know-what I've ever seen. It is really stupid, but hey, somebody out there must have thought, hey, that's really cool. Looks like somebody drank a bunch of orange juice and lemonade and barfed on it. So anyway, I'm going to go out and take a quick whiz on the Schwinn. Okay, well, we're going to go out for a little ride. The reason they quit making these bicycles was because of these shift levers, because a lot of people got hurt on them. So that was a demise of the crates and the Stingrays that had the shifters like that. So anyway, best way to get on these is lean them over and get on like that.